So it's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning in the middle of nowhere on the border of China and Mongolia. The train's gone. We're here with our bags. And then I hear these two loud voices, like screaming. And I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? So I get out of my bunk and I see both of them, the two girls, are kind of yelling at a Mongolian border guard. Story, like I said, the real adventure is only just beginning. Right? Oh, we're about 800 kilometers out of Ulaanbaatar, and the only train has gone. And we're like, well, we're here for the adventure, right? This is the outdoor journal. There's gonna be a story in it somewhere. I'm trying to remember what I used, but at some point I duct taped my skin. So I don't know what happened exactly. We were all like gathered at one point. At some point, one horse decided to bolt. Maybe it was a bee. So yeah, my first ever lead was probably with one set of nuts.
Okay, welcome back to the Outdoor Journal podcast Whiskey Hour with our founder and CEO, AP. We're going to pick AP's brain about some of the latest trends in adventure travel, and we'll catch you up on the behind the scenes action at TOJ, going over our biggest wins and toughest challenges. And it pays to listen to the Whiskey Hour because we'll also let you know how you can go on your own adventures with our trusted guides and operators on the outdoor voyage. So, AP, how is your week going so far, and what beverage are you going with today?
Hey, thanks, Davey. I'm sticking to the Great Finnish Water for now. We will eventually get to some whiskey as soon as we start recording, slightly later in the day because it's still sort of a Tuesday, not even afternoon yet. So if I start drinking whiskey in the mornings, I'm not sure how my day's going to turn out. But
And I'm
once we
going with
start,
a Swedish drink from the local Swedish store. I haven't run a translator on it, but it's some sort of berry.
can you show me the berry? Turn around. Maybe I
It's
can figure
called
it out.
Svarta Vinbar by Remlosa brand, and I think it's Hausobrunn,
Well,
some sort of
Svata
blackberry.
means black wineberry, which probably means it's a black currant. That's my guess. It's probably a black currant,
There's
but I'm just guessing.
a lot of
You
Swedish
check.
people are moving into this area, so we have a dedicated Swedish grocery store that has some fun snacks for the kids, and there's even like a Scandinavian clinic coming up right next to it. And I think a lot of the Swedish people are just sick of the gray winter, and they're moving down to Spain.
I'm not surprised. So there's a big Finnish community not far from where you live,
Or in
and
Malaga.
it is that month of the year. Yeah, exactly. So it's November, which means that anybody who can do it gets the hell out of Finland, right? Speaking of which, so there's Slush next week. Slush is like the biggest or one of the biggest tech conferences in Europe, and it's got like every VC from around the world flying in for this, and startups and whatever. I'm also going as media. And it's an interesting event because one of the things that like one of the ways to advertise the event is that I think the tagline is something like nobody in their right mind comes to Finland in November. Welcome you badass. Yeah, so yeah, it's very much the slushy time of the year where it's going to be pretty crappy. Like it's gray all the time. If you look out the window, I don't know how much you can tell, but it's basically gray now. There's no snow.
It's perfect chopping wood weather.
It's not bad for chopping wood. I'll try to chop some wood this weekend before we shut down the cabin for winter.
And we finished off last week's episode with a promise that you were going to go over one of your travel stories. And this is one where you ended up stranded in between the China and Mongolia border. So maybe you can just take it away.
Yeah, so this story, well, we covered a piece of it, very little, in one of the Outdoor Journal issues from some years ago. So this is now we're talking about 10 years ago, approximately, right? So at that point in time, for the print magazine, we had a pretty substantial team, and one of my colleagues, an associate editor, she was pretty young, loved horse riding and wanted to do this epic adventure crossing Mongolia, or at least doing a part of Mongolia on horses, right? So I said, hey, look, you know what? Let's look into this. Who's the best operator? who we'd be able to trust. And again, this is way before Outdoor Voyage came into being, right? So let's figure out who the best company is, who do we trust, who takes care of their horses, is sustainable, reliable, all of that. So she came back and figured out, okay, like the best company is Stone Horse Mongolia. Let's do this trip, right? So usually what we do is we do a little research and then we talk to the different governments involved, if necessary, to get some permissions, maybe get some support from the tourism departments, all of that. Now, this is going to be even more adventurous because we decided to fly into China, take the Trans-Mongolian Railway that hooks up into the Trans-Siberian, right? So if you look at the Trans-Siberian is the world's longest train journey, right? Unfortunately, these days it's probably not a great idea to do this because it goes across Russia, but it's been on the to-do list for me for a long time. But anyways, this is going to be the Trans-Mongolian that kind of like connects into the Trans-Siberian, goes from China into Mongolia and then onwards into Russia. So he said, "Cool. So let's fly into Beijing, spend maybe a day or two there, take the train, get into Mongolia, and then go to this horse riding trip." And the horse riding trip is going to be also epic, right? We're going to go into the Khan Kenti Mountains, which is sort of the northeastern part of Mongolia. It's kind of where it sort of becomes Siberia or southern Siberia, and that's where Genghis Khan is supposed to be from. All right, so he was born in those parts. They were all nomadic, so we don't really have any exact locations. Nobody really knows. He's buried somewhere there. Again, that is a secret. Nobody knows where he's buried. All of this really amazing, mysterious stuff. Um, Actually, again, I had some friends who ended up looking for Genghis Khan's tomb. Became a National Geographic documentary, right? So this old climbing partner of mine, Nate, and his buddies ended up getting sponsored by Nat Geo to go look for his tomb. Then I don't think they found it, but they did some. That was another adventure, right? I didn't go on that trip, but anyway, we weren't going to try and do any of that, right? Just this pure adventure travel, right? Just get on some horses, explore. So fly into Beijing. At this point, we're like, okay, we're gonna get on the train. It's very simple. Do a little bit of exploring of Beijing and the old city and the palace and all of that. We get onto the train, and the train gets into essentially the border of China and Mongolia at some point close to midnight. Okay. Now, what happens is that you've got to get off the train and you've got to hand over your passports to some Chinese border guards who collects them in like a cloth bag. Like he basically opens his bag, you start chucking your passport into it, all right? And just walks through the train. And then you get off the train, passportless, and you go to this little building where this basically is just this concrete structure. There's nothing in there except like an alcohol shop, like a duty-free alcohol shopping. So we're like, and you got to hang out there for like a couple of hours because what they're going to do is they're going to pick up the train and they're going to change the wheelbase because the Chinese railway and the Mongolian railway are on different gauges, right? Because the Mongolian railway is still like Soviet. They've got a different width of the wheelbase, and the Chinese railway system has a different width. So they got to pick up the carriages and switch it over. So you can go back in. It's still your train, but it's on a different wheelbase. All right. So it takes a couple of hours for them to do this, and it's like midnight, right, or close to midnight. So it's kind of late. It's been a long day. We've had hanging out in this concrete structure that you're not allowed to get out of with basically nothing but a duty-free alcohol shop. So you go there, you buy some drinks. That's all you can do. There's nothing else you can do. So I'm hanging out with some random Australians and basically drinking, right? Waiting to be let back on the train. So at some point around, I don't know, 1 or 2 a.m., right? They let us back on the train we get back on the train. And it's a little bit similar. There's this Chinese border guard running through the train, chucking passports back at you. All right. So you're like basically grabbing your passport, hoping it's like it's yours. In this little train thing, and then I get passport back, and I've had a couple of drinks by now, and it's late, so I just started. I lie down in my sleeper because now what's going to happen is the train's going to move for 10 minutes and get into Mongolia, and they're going to repeat the process of checking your passports. All right, so I lie down waiting to for the Mongolians to now check your passports. So yeah, we get into Mongolia, and I hear like some sounds, right, of of two people talking. So it's me, my associate editor, Madhuri, and somebody's coming with us who is an intern. right, at the Outdoor Journal. Now, she is an Indian Olympic athlete, tall, very strong looking woman, quite young, 18, I think, at that point in time. And her dad had asked me if she could intern at the Outdoor Journal because her dad was, potential investor, been working with us to support the Outdoor Journal in many ways. Came from a part of India that, he had a network there, and he was trying to help us do more work there. So we said, sure, I'd be happy to have her come along on this trip as long as the costs are covered, for her to do this and have this adventure. And so I'm kind of on the hook for these two women, right? I'm trying to take charge of everything that's going to happen
Hmm.
and make sure that they're safe. Um, and then I hear these two loud voices like screaming, and I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? So I get out of my bunk and I see both of them, the two girls, are kind of yelling at a Mongolian border guard. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it turns out that the Chinese had given back a torn passport to this other girl, right? The 18-year-old. Because I don't know how it happened, but the passport book, the cover and the booklet itself were like separated,
Hmm.
which technically means that the passport is defaced. It's not a legal document anymore for her to travel with. Now we're on the border of China and Mongolia in the middle of nowhere, and this Mongolian border guard is refusing to let her in. He's like, and he barely speaks any English. All right. So he's like trying to get her off the train. He's like, she has to be off the train. Like, no, no, come into Mongolia, whatever. I'm like, what are we gonna do here, right? I can't leave this 18-year-old Indian girl like in the middle of nowhere. And I can see like this, and I'm like, please calm down, right? Don't yell at this guy. He's just doing his job, right? He's not going to be the one who's going to do anything. We've got to talk to somebody who's a bit more senior. We're on the train. The train's got to move. Everyone's getting stressed out here right now.
Hmm.
And I see a trickle of sweat coming down this guy's brow. And this guy is like a very Soviet looking, there's the star on his cap, and like he's got a sidearm and all of these things. And I'm
Hmm.
like, listen, what? All three of us are going to get off the train right now. Okay? The train's going to go. We'll figure this out.
That's
So
quick
I
thinking.
grab yeah, like I grab our bags, I grab everything really quickly, and be like, we're all getting off the train, so we just get off the train. And as soon as we get off the train, this guy calms down, and the train starts to move. And like, okay, so it's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning, in the middle of nowhere, on the border of China and Mongolia. The train's gone. We're here with our bags, and someone's torn passport. Like, okay, what next, right? And yeah, I'm trying to check my phone and to see if I have a signal, and it's like one bar, right? I don't even know if I can use the phone, like it's roaming somewhere. Anyway, so this guy who's like calm down now, and he's like in like trying to get us to follow him, right? We're like trying to find out where the border police office is at this point. So we get into this little rickety, dungy room somewhere. Um, and I'm trying to calm the girls down. I'm like, listen, whatever you do, just do not yell at him, right? We're in the middle of nowhere. If something happens to us, nobody's going to know anything,
Hmm.
right? And so we get into this room. Of course, one of them decides to take out her phone and start like videoing. I'm like, please just don't do that. All right, this is not going to help the situation. We are not somewhere where you can take that video and like do something with it. This is not one of those situations. Anyway, so we're sitting down in this funny little room, and they're trying to basically tell us that she can't go in, enter Mongolia. And I'm like, what do you want her to do? Right? She can't go back to China now because they're going to say the same thing.
Hmm.
We've got to get to the capital, to Ulaanbaatar, to the embassy for her to get a fresh passport. That's the only way, right? Like she's either got to go to Beijing or to Ulaanbaatar. Like there's nothing else that's going to happen. She can't just hang out in like no man's land between the two barriers that constitute the country. I mean, like, what do you want her to do? This goes back and forth, right? And I'm also like, while I'm trying to talk to this guy, I'm like trying to frantically find a number and like message people, and whatever. Um, Finally, like they let us in, and they say, okay, look, in the morning, somebody's going to come, who's a bit more senior, who actually speaks English, right? So all of this is happening like half broken English. And somebody's going to come in the morning, and he can decide, like, okay, all right. In the meantime, and then once that decision has been taken, like that somebody's going to decide this in the morning, then they become like all chilled out and much friendly, like, oh, don't worry, we'll find you a place to sleep for the night. And so like, yeah, yeah, come with us. So they take us to like a
That's
hostel.
when it becomes people are people and they're just nice
Yeah,
and hospitable.
yeah, exactly. So that point it just came like a yeah, of course, yeah, we'd find you a place to sleep for the night. They take us to like this hostel, right? And they give us like a big hostel room. And so the two girls pass out, and I'm here on my phone, like trying to message anyone I can, find like embassy numbers and contacts.
What type of phone did you have? Was it a smartphone or a BlackBerry?
No, it was the smartphone.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like 2014, 2015, something like that.
And were
This
you
was
worried about their safety at all?
I mean, that's kind of what kicked us off, right? Because my biggest concern at this point in time was their safety, right? Especially those girls. And I was like, there's just no way that I can stay out. I mean, I have to take charge of the situation, obviously, and eventually, like her well-being is on my head, right? I'm in charge.
I'm
Um,
guessing these guys that are stationed there, they're not like top level soldiers. They probably did something wrong, and this is their punishment to be working in that
I
post.
mean, I mean, as we discovered the next morning, it is a dusty little town
Mm.
in outer Mongolia, right? That's where we are. We're on like the dusty little border town between China and Mongolia, so technically outer Mongolia. Um, yeah, you're not there because you're the creme de la creme of whatever, right? You're just there because that's where you got posted. So yeah, next morning we gonna get up. I've gotten like maybe 2, 3 hours of sleep at best. We go through back into this little dusty little room or building or whatever it is. And this dude shows up. He's like looking super chilled, wearing like a t-shirt, speaks perfect American English, right? I'm like, oh wow, okay, some guy can like talk, but he's even more hard ass. He's like, she's got to get out of here I give you until 9 a.m. Right? She has to get out of here by 9 a.m. if you don't hear back from the embassy or something like that. Like, what the Jesus Christ. Like he's super hard ass. I don't know why. And it's weird because he like again he speaks like really decent American English, right? I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, then I'm like frantically calling the embassy, and the embassy gets back to me. They're like, we're gonna talk to the Mongolian minister of whatever, right? The Ministry of Immigration, and they're gonna get back to this police station, and they're gonna tell them to back off and to let her proceed to Ulaanbaatar, which she's got to come to the embassy, and then yada yada yada,
So how far
right?
did you have to go? How far away was that?
Oh, we're about 800 kilometers out of Ulaanbaatar, and the only train has gone. There's nothing. There's like a single dusty road, and there's a train line, and the train left last night. Um. Anyway, so the clock's ticking. We're just sitting waiting for somebody from the Ministry of Immigration to call up these people. And 9 o'clock comes and goes, and the guy comes up and says, "Hey, we haven't heard from anyone. You gotta go." Like, dude, just we've spoken to them. They're gonna call. They've called the Minister of Immigration or whatever. They're gonna call you. It takes time for like this phone tag. It's bureaucracy. That's how it works, right? People call people, and they eventually get to you. They keep it just it's a stressful situation. Like 9 a.m., 9:15, 9:30. They're getting stressed. Around like 10 o'clock, finally they get a call, right? And they're like, okay, yeah, we got the call. You can go to Ulaanbaatar. I'm like, okay, get out of here. I'm like, what? How do we get to fucking Ulaanbaatar, right? They're like, yeah, yeah, go to the train station. There'll be a train.
You gotta tame some wild horses and make your way there.
Well, no, no. So the story, like I said, the real adventure is only just beginning, right? So we haven't really gotten anywhere. So we get out, we grab our bags, and we get to the train station, which is literally like you can imagine this, right? It's like this little it's like a train line. It's like this Wild West. It's out of a Wild West movie, right? One train line, one platform, one little ticket box, nothing else. We get there, the ticket box is closed. There's nothing. There's nobody. Empty. Just you know, like dust flying in the wind.
Tumbleweeds.
Tumbleweeds. I mean, like literally, I don't know if they were tumbleweeds, but it feels like they were tumbleweeds, like drifting by. And then and we find somebody at the ticket booth, like after like I don't know, maybe an hour or so, or half an hour. Somebody comes up and they're like, "Yeah," and we're like, "When's the next train to Ulaanbaatar?" And they're like, "Well, there's one this evening, and that takes 3 days to get to Ulaanbaatar because it's not the fast train. Um, or the next Trans-Mongolian is in another 3 days or 5 days. Right. So the choice is either we take the slow train, okay, which is going to take us like I don't know how long, which is basically like a cargo train or whatever they want to
Hmm.
call it, right? I don't even know this place to sit in this thing. Or we wait in this dusty Wild West town for like 5 days for the next Trans-Mongolian to go by. At which point, of course, this horse riding trip that we're here for, those guys would have long left, right? Because they were supposed to like leave the next day for the Kankendi Mountains on horses.
Yeah, the whole reason you're there.
Yeah, the whole reason we're there. Um, so we're like, okay, we're just sort of like thinking over our choices here with our bags around our feet on this concrete platform. When this little kid comes running up, I kid you not, like this 10, 11, 12-year-old kid comes jogging up to us and starts like speaking in rapid fire Mongolian. Like, slow down, what do you want? Then he switches to Russian. And still like, what? And at some point, and then, I catch something that sounds a bit like auto, right? Car. And I'm like, what? Are you saying you have a car? Taxi? Like what are you suggesting? And he's like, yeah, come. Like basically, he's trying to say that he's gonna get us a taxi. And we're like, Ulaanbaatar. He's like, yeah, we'll get you. So he wants to get us a taxi to go to Ulaanbaatar, 800 kilometers. Like, okay. And we're like, well, we're here for the adventure, right? This is the outdoor journal. It's gonna be a story in it somewhere. So like, okay. The kid like grabs our bags. He's like this 12-year-old skinny little
Wow.
kid. Grabs all of our bags and starts like I'm like, no, chill out, man. Like I'll grab some. So I grab the backpack and he's just got two bags and the girls are like running after him. He's like taking off at full speed sprint, like grabbing her. So I'm like running after him. And we get to the end of the platform. And and at the end of the platform, like again, my memory is like it's been a while, but it's all like playing like a movie in my head. It's literally like somebody like doing donuts in the dust.
The kid's dad, I'm guessing.
And it looked like his older sister. Like it just seemed like this other very young looking woman driving what I think was a Lada. You know what Lada is? It's those
Mm-mm.
old Soviet cars. So a Lada was this old car made in the Soviet Union. All right, it looks like a Fiat. I think it was actually an old like 1950s or 1960s Fiat box that they sold the dies to the Soviet Union. And so this is really I know this car. I've driven on this driven this car, right? So this girl comes out like driving this lot, and we're like, we're not all gonna fit in here with our car bags and things and drive 800 kilometers to
Yeah.
one. And she's like, no, it's fine. It's like again more rapid fire, like Mongolian and Russian. And I'm like, and basically I kind of understood the gist was that this she would drive us to another taxi that would drive us to Ulaanbaatar. That's what I understood. Okay, I don't know how I understood that, but I understood that. So we're like, okay. So we sort of pile in somehow with all of our bags, the three of us, and this little kid and this girl driving this Lada. Right.
This sounds like a plan to get even more stranded.
Oh my God, this is just like at this point, I'm like, was this a bad idea? Because I'm like, we're stuffed in there. And then she starts driving, and we drive for like half an hour. It looks like we're looking to cross the train tracks, right? Whatever, I don't remember, like 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. We cross the tracks. And as we cross the tracks and drive along, there's like a goods train on the siding, right? And we get into this lot where the goods train is, and they're offloading Toyota vans. Okay. And they look like used Toyota vans, not new. All right. They all look like they're a little bit dinged up. And I kind of understood, right, that basically China is sending its used
Hmm.
vans to Mongolia, right? And people are, I mean, this is like a business. So essentially, these vans are being offloaded from this goods train. And this girl then drops us off right in this thing and like goes and finds some guy like part of offloading and starts like talking to him. Anyway, I pay her like a bunch of ringgit or whatever. I forget what it's called. It's like Mongolian money. It's got Genghis Khan's face on it. So pay him some money, pay her some money. Sorry, it wasn't a lot, like $5, right? Dollars or something in Mongolian money. And they're like, oh, we're done. And they scamper off. They're gone. Right? Now we're left with some random dude, okay, negotiating. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you to, and he was not so friendly. He's like, I'll take you to Ulaanbaatar or whatever. And again, his English was a little bit better, but not great. And we're like, okay, how much? And then there's some numbers being thrown around, and it's like thousands and thousands of, zeros involved. And then I'm trying to do the math in my head, and I'm like trying to get. So basically, it turns out like this guy was offering to take all of us to Ulaanbaatar, right, for 45 US dollars,
Wow.
if I understood it correctly. And I was like, that sounds like a good deal. And I was like, okay. So here we go. So we're now in a Toyota van with all of our bags, committed to going to Ulaanbaatar, 800 kilometers away, for $45. Like, okay. And
Are we
that's it. I
talking
mean,
a
take
van
us.
with like, does it have a bench seat or pilot seats, or are you just sitting on the floor in the back there?
No, it's like a regular, like a Prius van or something. I don't remember what it was. It was like yeah, it was like a regular Toyota, soccer van. Um,
So it's not like a
for
produce van that's just stripped out.
No, 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 it wasn't. It was just like a regular secondhand. Somebody sold it from China and now they're selling it in Mongolia. Um, and we start driving across the Mongolian countryside. It's all steps and single road, single lane, um, for the next 8 hours or something,
Wow.
right? Um, Sun goes down, get into like some small, I don't know, village or place to eat. Get a bunch of noodles with mutton, right? Because that's all there is to eat here. And then we finally get into Ulaanbaatar some point that night, I think. Right? So it's been like 24 hours since this whole epic happened. And we end up in the hostel that we're planning to stay in Ulaanbaatar. And we find the Australians we were hanging out with before. And they're like, holy shit, we thought you guys were going to be dead. And we're like, no, we're here. Yeah, no, so all was well. We got there, and the next day, we got a fresh passport and all of that, and met up with our friends from Stone Horse. Told them the story. Got on our horses and went riding across Mongolia. It was amazing, I mean, it was an amazing trip. There are these epic, um, it's wilderness, right? So there's still like these mounds, the tumulus and tumuli of Hunnic warriors and horses. The Huns come from
Hmm.
Mongolia. So there are these essentially like Bronze Age era um, mounds, which are the tombs of these Hun warriors, that you're basically riding over, in
Wow.
the middle of nowhere, right? And so we spent like the next 10 days riding up into the mountains. And yeah, it was an amazing trip. Amazing, amazing trip. Stone Horse Mongolia was the company.
And
And
what was your horse riding level before you started, and what how much did it improve over that 10 days, do you think?
that's a great question. So before that, my previous bigger, longer horse riding experience had been maybe 4 or 5 days in the canyon, the Shea, in Arizona, in Navajo Nation, riding little Mustangs. And I felt like that was tough, but I thought it'd be okay. And Mongolian horses are very similar to Mustangs, right? They're kind of small and hardy and wiry, and they can go like long distances, right? But I have to say that this was painful. My thighs were chaffed. It was horrible. I eventually, I think, I'm trying to remember what I used, but at some point I duct taped my skin. Because there was just no other way, right? I mean, it was just the inner thighs were like, and I was like bouncing. I was carrying like my back because I had all my camera gear and I wanted to shoot what I was riding. So I had all my gear with me when we were riding, and I had like two little solar panels on the side of the horses so I could charge some batteries. So I was not a light rider. I was a little bit heavy, and I was bouncing a lot, and I was admiring Keith, who's the owner of Stone Horse, and Sabina, and they were like, he would just like, with his ankles, he would just have the little movement of his ankles to ride with the horse, and his body
Hmm.
would not move. I was just like, how the hell is he doing that, right? Um, and I think at moments I was getting it, like I was able to ride with the horse, but when the horse is like in that motion, like that long trot that they do, man, I was bouncing like sack of potatoes. It was not easy. Galloping's a lot easier for sure, but when you're on that little like
Hmm.
trot, and they've got the motion going for hours. I mean, the worst day was like I think 8 or 9 hours on the horse. Yeah, I was wrecked.
I think those are the Mongolian riders. They have this technique where they can basically lean over all the way sideways, and then they could shoot a bow and arrow like that. Did you ever
Yeah.
try that technique with your zoom lens?
I mean, I did stand up and try to shoot while riding, and I think, to be fair, I think I did okay, right?
Hmm.
I was not a great rider, but I did okay, and I had my seat all the time, like I was fine. I never fell off the horse. At one point, horses, right? So, I think one of them gets scared or thinks there's a wolf. They're pack animals, right? So if one of them decides to bolt, everyone's going to bolt. So I don't know what happened exactly. We were all like gathered at one point. At some point, one horse decided to bolt. Maybe it was a bee. Who knows what happens, right? They see little green men all the time, right? Other people, I think some of them had gotten off the horses. I don't remember. Remember I was a little bit further back. One horse bolted, and mine decided to bolt, right? So completely unexpected. And I still had my seat, managed to get him to calm down and stop, like not too far. But when they bolt, they really go for it.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I did okay. I did okay. I think it was just a matter of trying to get that. As long as you're athletic, that was my take on it. That's what I said to Keith before we started this thing. I said, look, I'm a climber, and I've done a lot of like outdoor stuff. I've not spent a lot of time on horses. Um, Before the Mustangs in Canyon the Shea, I think the last time I was on a horse was probably as a 7-year old, being led around on a pony or something. Um, so yeah, and he was like, "Yeah, you'll be fine," and it's true. I heard, but I was fine.
Were the guides impressed with the riding level of the Olympic athlete you were with and very respectful of her?
Um, yeah, I mean, she was very good. That's true. I think everyone else was very good,
Mm.
because I think they had way more horse experience than I did, for sure. I mean, both of them had a lot of experience. And then there was a couple from Singapore. There was somebody else from France, I think. There was Keith and Sabina, and then there was three others. I think there were two Mongolian guides, and then there was one guy, I can't remember his name right now, but I think he was from Wyoming, who was like spending some time
Hmm.
working with them, with Keith, and Sabina. Um, I think everyone else was like very experienced. I was the least experienced person there for sure.
You were the only duct taper
I
to
was
the.
probably the only duct taper. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. By the way, we did end up doing some climbing with this guy. I can't remember his name, but we found some rocks
Hmm.
while on day 4 or 5, and I was like, and I had my, I think I did I borrow? We borrowed some ropes from Keith because Keith's an ex-climber as well. And we ended up climbing a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah, some rocks, some outcrops that we found. So it was actually it was nice. It was nice to explore and just check out these different places and like, when's the last time somebody was here, or was there ever anyone here? There are definitely places like that. It was very cool. Very cool.
were the rocks prepared already with some roots, or did you have to?
Oh, no, 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 hell no. No, I'm not going to claim that there was some first ascents made, but maybe,
Hmm.
there's no way of knowing if anyone ever climbed any of those things. I mean, they weren't big. It was just like up
But
the
you were
sh
anchoring as you went.
I think what did we do? I don't even remember if we had that much gear.
Hmm.
Maybe we had one set of nuts or something to like build some anchors. So we, you can do a bunch of things, like you can use some slings and make knots in the slings and put them into cracks, and you can, sling around some pieces of rock sticking out or whatever. I mean, you can do sketchy stuff. It's not impossible to, as long as you have basic gear. Because that's how I started climbing. I mean, that's another story for another time. We can talk about that. But when I started climbing, I mean, I was a broke ass student. Like, I had like really no money, right? So I think I bought a set of nuts. And did I borrow a rope? I mean, maybe I borrowed a rope and I had one set of nuts and a bunch of draws, or maybe a bunch of carabiners. And that's kind of how people used to climb back in the 1960s and 70s anyways, right? They didn't
Hmm.
have a lot of gear. And that's how I started learning how to trad climb. I didn't have any cams and friends and a whole rack of stuff. It was just, I couldn't afford it. So yeah, my first ever lead was probably with one set of nuts,
Wow.
um, in Seneca Rocks. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a great story. That's definitely one that it's worthy of being written down, so lots of more people can
Yeah. Yeah.
flesh out even more with more detail.
Yeah. I'll try and dig up some of those pictures. But I think the most, Just this memory of being stuck somewhere in outer Mongolia on this dusty train station. It was like out of a Wild West movie. It was like,
Okay, so now I have to tell you about Rafael Hidalgo.
yeah,
So I got the chance to interview Rafael Hidalgo this week, and I've been a fan of his YouTube films for a long time now. If you don't watch ultra running documentaries, then you might not have heard of Rafael Hidalgo, but I promise you, if you watch any of his films on YouTube, you will feel inspired to set a goal so big that it scares you. He brings his camera along with him on races in the Alps, across the US, and even South America, so you can see the emotional ups and downs of ultra running. And what sets him apart is his way with words. His voiceovers are so poetic and philosophical and inspirational, and they give me goosebumps. He writes about ultras the way that people describe an ayahuasca trip. It's like a meeting with the soul. So I highly recommend our listeners check out his YouTube channel. It's called Rafael Hidalgo, and specifically his journey on the UTMB, which is the pinnacle of the sport. It's over 100 miles and over 10,000 meters of elevation gain through the Alps, through France, Italy, and Switzerland over 2 sleepless nights. And if you want to immerse yourself in the beautiful mountains around UTMB, you can actually go on the outdoor voyage right now, and we have a guided tour de Mont Blanc around that starts in Chamonix, and it's a 7-day guided tour. So that's a great way to scout the race course if you have UTMB in mind, and but this time you won't have any of those aggressive cutoff times that almost made Rafael DNF in his attempt. And we also have an article on TOJ right now that's written by Rafael Hidalgo. It's called The Pain Cave, and it's all about what triggers when the going gets tough on a race, what comes out of you to kind of see the best version of yourself.
UTMB. Oh my God. I mean, I've been to the event multiple times to cover it, to support friends. And it's epic, right? Because you're in the mountains, you're around the Mont Blanc region, the whole Mont Blanc Massif. So basically, you're going around the Mont Blanc Massif, right? And you're crossing from France to Italy to Switzerland, back to France, and crossing these cols, right? These passes between the countries. And it is intense because the first part of the race, right? You're actually running from Chamonix
Hmm.
to Courmayeur, crossing the Col du Bonhomme, and it's like a 40 clicks of uphill and then downhill over the goal. So like it's a marathon distance that you're going like in the mountains before you get a break, really, right? And you can see in Courmayeur people are like just beat, like flat out, lying down,
Hmm.
trying to get a little bit of rest and then keep moving after that and just you barely start the distance because there's still another like 60 plus kilometers to go. Um, so yeah, it's an incredible race, but it's an incredible journey, and I think it is more enjoyable, in my opinion, to take the time, right? You're going to be covering that distance anyways, to maybe scout it or just to
Hmm.
do the trail itself over. People usually do it over a week, like that's the
Hmm.
typical time spent on that distance. Of course, the event itself is like, I forget what the cutoff is, like 40 hours or
46
something like
hours, yeah.
hours. Yeah, 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 yeah. And then the fastest runners were completing it in like, I don't know, 14 hours or something. It's insane. Like 16 hours. It's just mind blowing. Totally mind blowing, right? But yeah, and we've ended up we've helped people book those trips with a local guide. It's not that easy if you want to do it yourself because you've got to actually block off the refuges if you want to spend the night
Hmm.
in these mountain refuges and mountain huts. It's not that easy because you've got to plan it and then you've got to call them up and then you've got to actually block those times off. Or if you just, decide to use a local company, which is what we do, we've got a local company that's essentially native to the mountains, to the region. They're from Chamonix. They know everybody. They block off the seats for you, and you can keep it as easy or high, intensity as you want. You can ask for a local guide. If you don't want a guide, you just want to know, get those huts blocked off. You can ask them to do that, and it doesn't cost much more to do that, right? So it's an easy way to plan that journey, especially if you want to go back and modify it and visit other parts of the mountains because the UTMB is like this 100K event, but I know they still do, but they used to have like larger versions of it and smaller versions of it. But the biggest extreme version of it was like 300 and something kilometers.
Mm.
It was like this super extreme distance that sort of extends outwards into the mountains, and goes through. And I was just like, wow, I think that takes longer, of course, but
That sounds like it
um,
might be Tour de Jean.
maybe Tour de Joux. Yeah, maybe Tour de Joux. Yeah, it's possible. Um, I just can't imagine like spending that much time, running.
It's funny, they actually give the racers a do not disturb sign. So you could
Mhm.
take a little nap on the side of the trail and you flip the do not disturb sign so that way people aren't like tapping you and seeing if you're alive or not.
Oh,
You know, you're
like,
just taking your own little nap.
yeah, yeah. I mean, people pass out. Like, it's true. You just, at some point when you're so
Mhm.
exhausted, you're out, right? And you need that to be able to rest. Cool. Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yeah, can't wait to hear.
So a lot of people who regularly read the Outdoor Journal, they might not know that we also have an outdoor voyage blog. So what sets that apart from the Outdoor Journal and where can people find that?
Yeah, so if you go to outdoorvoyage.com, right? I mean, you've got outdoorvoyage.com is a platform and a marketplace to connect with these operators, but there's also a blog embedded into Outdoor Voyage that's separate from the Outdoor Journal. And the reason we have that is nowadays, and it's been a while now, but one of the main reasons is that we've got to separate what used to be called service journalism, right?
Hmm.
How do you do this? How do you get somewhere? How do you get the cheapest flights, or how do you go from this location to that location, and all of those little how-tos make more sense now to fit under the Outdoor Voyage blog because that's really something we can update. We can help people book things and find ways to travel themselves, while the outdoor journal becomes a source of inspiration, right? And journalism and travel writing. So yeah, that's the main differentiator is in an era when printed guidebooks are falling out of fashion because the information starts to get stale, is we want to put that type of information into the outdoor voyage blog, the how-tos, the do-it-yourselves, the ways and means of being able to achieve certain things in a very
Mhm.
concrete way. Get off this train and get onto that, and find a cab, stay at this refuge. All of that stuff is going to be in the Outdoor Voyage blog.
Okay, so if you want inspiration, you go to the Outdoor Journal, and you want helpful, action-oriented information, you go to the Outdoor Voyage blog.
Correct.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us on the Outdoor Journal Whiskey Hour. Tune in next week to hear AP discuss the Rolex watch on Everest controversy. Which watch was really first? And stay tuned for more exciting podcasts coming up.